When can't you go to a wedding? As a Catholic, are there certain ceremonies or weddings that you should not or cannot go to as a Catholic? I know this is not homeschool related, but this is a conversation we had to have with our children recently because of a situation that our family was put in recently. So, a little bit of background. Obviously, if you're following my channel, you know that we are Catholic, right? The channel has the word Catholic in it, right? And we homeschool. And so a lot of what we do in our Catholic lives are taught to our children because we want them to understand our faith. We want them to understand God and his love for us and who we are. And one thing that has come up recently, not just with my family, but friends of ours too, has been, when can you attend a certain wedding, right? So the obvious answer is, if it's a Catholic getting married in a Catholic church and it's approved by the church, you can go to the wedding, right? Catholic, go to the wedding, right? But something that recently came up for our family that was just so incredibly hard, but Jesus never said it was easy to follow him, right? The world hated him first, is when you have someone close to you that is not doing what they are supposed to do as Catholics. Let me give you an example. I love my brother-in-law. And when we first met his, at the time, girlfriend, she was wonderful. Just super sweet, solid head on her shoulders, smart, wonderful, made him happy, made him a better person. We love her. We love him. But we found out early in their relationship that she was actually previously married as a Catholic in the Catholic Church. So both her previous husband and her were both Catholic and married in the Catholic Church, and then had a little girl. Beautiful little girl. We love her too, right? But we found out early in their relationship that my brother-in-law was not what had asked her about an annulment, which in Catholic terms is not just a Catholic divorce. It means that the magisterium of the church looks into that marriage and decides, was it a valid marriage? Did it meet the criteria for marriage? Were they free, without coercion, and willing to live the Catholic faith, right? Those are the three terms, I believe, that make a marriage valid. And so in my eyes and my husband's eyes, and we're not the magisterium, it looked like a valid marriage, but there are many reasons why it might not be a valid marriage. So if you are Catholic and you end up civilly divorcing your spouse, you should go to the magisterium of the Catholic Church and lay out your case. Why was it not a valid marriage? Which annulment means it didn't happen, right? Null and void. And the church can decide, oh, this person came to the marriage not able to be married. Maybe they were previously married, or they didn't come to the marriage for the right reasons. And there are multiple reasons for this, and I can't decide. That's what the church is for. And there are people in the church that decide this for these people, right? So my brother-in-law actually brought it up to his girlfriend at the time and said something about, are you going to get an annulment? And it just made her upset. So he didn't pursue it. And when we brought it up to him, we said, we love her, but she needs an annulment if you guys are going to get married. He said, yeah, I got this. Don't worry about us. Okay, got it. Trusting in him that he will do the right thing. I also want to add that this brother-in-law of mine didn't just become Catholic as a baby and baptized. And, I know that's full Catholic as well. He actually chose to become Catholic as an adult in his 30s. And now he's in his 40s. So he did the whole RCIA, baptism, confirmation, first communion, shebang, right? So he chose this as an adult and knew the faith as an adult. So it wasn't just, I was baptized when I was a baby, so I don't really know my faith. I wasn't brought up in the faith. No. He went through this as an adult. Okay, so back to them. They decided to get engaged. He proposed, and we were thrilled. She's amazing. We love her. We're excited. He's gonna get a new daughter because she already has that previous daughter from a previous marriage. Wonderful, right? We were super excited. But then my husband and I started having conversations like, Well, she still hasn't had an annulment that we know of. So I had to have the conversation. And I know it sounds weird. Yes, I had the conversation with my brother-in-law because my husband and brother-in-law fight about literally anything. They're just two different spectrums of politics and how religion should affect your life and how you should live your life, and just totally opposite in a lot of things. So they actually don't communicate very well. And that's a family issue, not just them. They were just not raised to communicate very well. So I usually can speak to the brother-in-law much better and more effectively than the two of them speaking. So I decided I was going to be the one to call him and talk to him about this. So I did. I called him like a month after the engagement. I let, the excitement happen. So about a month into the engagement, I decided to have a phone call and talk to him about it. And I said, have you talked to your fiance about the annulment? And he said, yeah. I've talked to her about it. And I said, great. So are you guys going to, start the process? Do you need any help? I have family who's actually done this. They've gone through the annulment process. If you need their advice, they're happy to talk to you too. Anything to help you get through this process, right? And he said, well, actually, we're not going to go through the process. We're going to get married first and then get the annulment after the wedding. And I said, so you're not getting married in the church at all, and she's not going to have an annulment? And he said, no, we don't practice the faith at all anymore. So I know you guys do, but we don't really go to church, which they do for her family's Catholic family, because they're a very big Catholic family, and they go to first communions and baptisms, but they don't really go to church. And I understand that. They've now fallen away from the church, which is sad, and we pray for them. But we haven't. My husband, me, my family, we have not. We've actually grown even more into the church. So I told him that she's not actually eligible to be married. And I said this very politely. And I said, we love her, we love you, we want you to get married. But because she was married in the Catholic Church as a Catholic with free will, she's technically still married in the church. And his argument was, well, we don't really believe in what the Catholic Church teaches. Fine. And civilly, she's divorced. Like, the state that they live in recognizes her as divorced. She's not married. And I said, that's great. But the church that we all belong to recognizes her as married, which means that she's still married to this man, according to the church that we all belong to, that you chose to join 10 years ago as an adult. And he said, well, that's not fair because we don't believe that. And I said, okay, but we do. So she is now ineligible to be married. She's still married. In my faith, in the Catholic Church, she's still married, which means we can't go to something that supports her marrying someone else. We want her to, but she's not even eligible to be married. So, of course, this, super upset him. I said, literally talk to any priest. I think even a super liberal, newer age priest would say if she's still married in the Catholic Church's eyes, she can't get married. So I've listened to a lot of podcasts. I've listened to Catholic Answers. I've listened to Father Mike Schmitz. And I'm more of a traditional Catholic, so I'm more of the old school, Catholic tradition. So I get that I'm a little more conservative when it comes to these kinds of things. However, even the more newer, more modern priests are saying that there are multiple times where you have to discern whether or not you should go. But number one is if a person has been married in the church and has not had an annulment, you flat out can't go. That has been non-negotiable in all of these areas. You've got Catholic Answers, Father Mike Schmitz. They don't even entertain the idea. If someone's not even eligible to be married, you can't go. Why? Because it causes scandal. Not scandal for me. I know that my faith is not going to be shaken. But if I show up to that wedding that's actually invalid, and because she can't even get married, that shows everybody else at the wedding that, oh, the Catholic Church actually doesn't believe what it believes. It's okay with civil divorce, and you don't have to have an annulment. So it's interesting because in this case, one, she's not even eligible to be married, and two, they're not getting married in the Catholic Church, which makes it invalid as well. Apparently, I didn't know this when I was younger and my husband and I got married outside of the church, but I was Catholic. We had an invalid marriage for 2 years before we came back into the church and had our marriage validated and had the sacramental marriage. Because as a Catholic, you were called to get married within the church by a priest. Done. So there are 2 reasons for this one that make it an invalid marriage. One, she's already married, so unless she gets that annulled, she can't get married. And 2, they're getting married outside of the church. So for us, it was a pretty easy, we can't go. And by easy, I mean heartbreaking, because I wanted to go. We both wanted to go. Our children wanted to go. And we had to have this conversation with our children, especially the 10-year-old, right? How come we're not going to his wedding? Well, because it's not technically a wedding. It's invalid. We can't go and support that. And she totally understood that, because the nice thing about 10-year-olds is they're in a good place when it comes to their faith, right? And she knows more about the faith than I did when I was 35 years old, right? So she's amazing, and she understood it, as hard as it was. And as Father Mike Schmitz said, said, that made me feel a little bit better about it is, one, you cannot go to this kind of wedding. And 2, it's not my fault or my husband's fault that we're not going to their wedding. It's their fault that we're not going, right? Because they're the ones choosing to not live the faith that they said they were going to live. So I just pray we're open to a relationship with them. They don't seem to be open to us anymore. Like, once we had that conversation, it was like, cut all ties, not talking to you anymore. And I've had a lot of people say, well, wouldn't it be better if you just go to the wedding to at least maintain that relationship? But that's not what Jesus said, right? Jesus said, you follow my truth. And if you cause any one of these to be scandalized, you're better that a millstone be thrown around your neck and you thrown in a river, right? So we chose to follow Jesus and his church. And as hard as it has been, we believe that we did the right thing. So since then, I think that they are civilly married. We were not invited officially to the wedding. We haven't heard anything from anybody else about the wedding. So I think they're married, and we missed it. So that sucks. But okay, so there are multiple times like trying to discern, can we go to the wedding? Can we not? So I already said, if they're Catholic and getting married in the Catholic Church, go to the wedding, right? If they are divorced and no annulment, you can't go to the wedding, because one or both of them are ineligible to be married. But what about the in-betweens? What about people who were baptized Catholic as babies, but grew up not really in the church? I have several cousins like this who grew up not in the church. They grew up non-denominational or never really in church at all. So they're technically Catholic. Are they required to get married in the church? Well, technically, yes. But this is where a lot of people will say there's kind of a gray zone, right? Like, by no fault of their own, I guess, they were raised Catholic, or at least baptized Catholic, but they didn't choose to be Catholic. This is where my brother-in-law is different. He did it as an adult. He knew full well. But if they are Catholic in any way, they're meant to be married in the church. Otherwise, it's invalid. So a lot of priests will say, well, that's up to you if you want to keep the relationship. Does that cause scandal? In our situation, I believe it still causes scandal. Like, you're meant to be married in the church. So for us to support you being married outside of the church is not okay. And we actually have friends who just went through this last month. Again, one of their brothers, raised Catholic, decided not to get married in the church. And so they didn't end up going to the wedding. Unfortunately, the family was very mad at them. What really gets me, what bothers me the most, is you've got these huge Catholic families, like my brother-in-law and his now wife, significant other. Her whole family was Catholic. And we were the only ones who said no to this. And if the whole family had said, no, we can't go because it's invalid until you get an annulment, then they probably would have done the right thing and gotten an annulment. But no one pushed back except for us. And so we're the bad guys, right? We're the ones who are the religious zealots. I can't believe you're not coming to your brother's wedding. I get it. The same thing happened with another set of friends of mine. They didn't go to the wedding. And it wasn't because someone was previously married. It was simply because they weren't getting married in the church, which makes it invalid if you're Catholic, right? So these are things that we've had a hard time with. I did tell my brother-in-law, I said, you know, if you have this ceremony outside of the church and you do come back to the church and have it validated after she gets an annulment, we are 100% there. We will be sitting in the pews, supporting you, loving you, doing everything we can to support this marriage. But we can't support an invalid marriage, especially one where she's not even eligible to be married. But then, of course, the clapback that I got from him was, do you really think I'd invite you to that if you wouldn't even come to my first wedding? I get it. I get it. But I just pray that one day he goes to a priest, gets an annulment, and does have his marriage validated. And I just pray that the priest says, you shouldn't be mad at your brother and sister-in-law. They did the right thing. They did it because we love them. Because we love them, we want them to do the right thing. Because right now they're living in mortal sin. They're not married, but they're acting like they're married. And that's not the loving thing to support and say, yes, we support it. Even just because we love you, we just support you and want you to do something that's not good for your soul. So I'm praying that someday a priest will say, they were right. Maybe, you know, give them a little grace and a little bit of love and reach out to them. I'm just praying that someday that happens. But this is hard. And the reason I bring this up on the homeschool group is because this is life in a homeschool group. This is not just homeschool and work and teaching and, curriculum. This is, what is it like to live your faith as a Catholic? And this is one of the hardest things. And I knew this was going to come. Like 10 years ago, when he started dating people and he's like, oh, this one was previously married. I was just praying, please let it be a Catholic and someone who will get an annulment. And then that, relationship would fizzle out. And then the next one would come and that would fizzle out. And then this one came and I was like, oh no, this is it. But she's Catholic. Her family's Catholic. They're going to tell her she needs an annulment. He's already mentioned it. But then it didn't pan out. So this is life. This is life as a Catholic and being called to live your faith even when it's hard. And this is probably one of the hardest things our family has ever had to deal with. So I know that a lot of people are going through this. A lot of people are being mistreated or they're basically turning us into bad guys and saying, I can't believe you would do this to your brother or your family member in the name of your Catholic faith. But I mean, isn't that what faith is? To put God and his church above everything else. If the church says this because God told it to, that takes priority over everything else. And it's so incredibly hard, but you know that you're doing the right thing, even though it's hard. And I get maybe because it's hard. Sometimes the hard thing is the right thing and the easy thing is not the right thing. And in this case, finding, discerning, can you go to the wedding, can you not, and making sure that you put God above everything else, that's the most important thing you can do. So thanks for watching. If you like this information, if you like learning about the Catholic Church, if you like learning about homeschool, please like and subscribe to my channel, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.